The following technique basically takes factions completely out of the equation when it comes to your influence income and basically gives you a free 2-point influence a month. That's right, 2 additional influence per month. It's all lump sum, so it's all in one big blob. You can get 250 influence without actually doing a lot of work for it. And I'll illustrate why. So let's take a look at our government setup. So you can see we are, in fact, a democracy. A democracy holds an election every 10 years. When that happens, basically a leader will be put into place and you will be given a mandate. This is also the case for oligarchies. Once we go to the mandates, you will see that we, here on the situation log, you'll see that we have a objective. Build mining stations. Right now the reward says medium, 80 to 175. This is completely and utterly incorrect. It is always 250 as of the current build of the game. That is 1.8. So, 1.6, my apologies. 1.8 is not out yet by the time this video is being produced. So, what can we do? Well, we need to build mining stations, right? Well, we can go and take a look at some of our mining stations that are on standby. What if we remove one? So what if we remove a mining station? It's +2, it's minor, it's a tiny amount, it's marginal. The problem right now is the mining stations will be set to -2 for all the mining stations removed. This is a mechanic in the game to make sure that you do not abuse the system in order to get more influence than you should in the late game, when you should probably be switching to a different type of a government form. Influence is the lifeblood of your game. Forget about minerals. Forget about energy. Influence is where it's at, and I'll tell you why. If we go to one of our planets and we take a look at the mid to late game planets, using the edicts like capacity overload and production targets, we can crank out a rather significant amount of resources on all of our planets, especially if we've specialized planets to do just one thing, like food, energy, and minerals. And these are all being channeled through the edict system. It's very expensive to do unless you have the technology and the traditions in place to lower the cost of those. However, it is such a great boon and it really will speed up your game. But how to get that influence? Well, turns out that there is a thing in place which allows you to abuse the democracy system and get an additional 250 influence every 10 years. That is a gargantuan amount. So how exactly do we do this? Let's take a look at the election cycle, shall we? So here we are, it's still the same map, and as you can see, a election is currently underway. We have way too much influence right now, so what we'll do is we'll actually start adding these edicts, just to illustrate the things involved. We're getting a bunch of additional energy and minerals a month, which can get pretty ridiculous if you do it right, specifically with planets that have a lot of energy, like this one. Boom, you get 7 free energy, which is definitely not something to gloss over. So let's do it with this ones as well, and here you go, you get a ton of additional energy and minerals per planet. So how do we actually do this? There is one small period in time with democracies and also oligarchies where you can abuse the system. This is during the election campaign cycle. During the election campaign cycle, there is still the mandate. Obviously, the mandate is still in place, but we can easily remove that because the mandate resets whenever there is a new ruler in place. So all we gotta do now is actually support a leader that helps us. So this particular one, we've got one who is the champion of the people. The weapon damage, warlike, is great, and most importantly, off-world miner. That is your key right here. We select it, we support the ruler. He now has a 21% of the vote share, which is absolutely humongous. But now we get to the real trick for this particular strategy. We find a system that has several mining stations in place. And what do? We just remove them. We only need to remove 4. In this particular case, they are fairly low tier, so I'm going to remove 5 in this particular case. And as you can see, this system is now completely empty. We have a construction ship on standby. We have the person that we need in order to get the right type of leader going. And as we can see right now, the mandate is currently set to -4. So let's continue here. Let's wait for the election cycle to go over, and then we will see what the actual trick is here. One moment, as we wait for the election to be over. It only usually takes a month. There we go. As we have a new Chancellor of the United Nations of Earth. That in this particular case, it was a scientist, so we'll quickly replace that one. As you can see in the mining mandate, in this particular case, the mining stations build is still set to 4, so it has a reset. Considering we reset everything, it means that we can very quickly and very efficiently get the mining stations in place and basically get a gargantuan amount of influence, which will allow us to do far more. Now, obviously, when you're starting out in the game, it's a lot easier to work with this because you have a lot of space to expand, and getting a lot of influence is relatively easy, especially as a democracy. But once you get to the mid to late game, you do not have that flexibility, and the game kinda incentivizes you to switch to one of the other government forms, whether or not it's an empire, oligarchy, or which one else? The other one? One moment. Dictatorial, obviously, and imperial in this particular case. So. But yeah, oligarchy, it works as well. There's an election every 40 to 50 years, which is not really all that practical in general. So let's see how our science ships are doing. He's already built one, as you can see. We're already at +3. And there we go. The mining mandate has been fulfilled, and we get a free 250 influence to spend on new edicts in new stations or built on other things that require influence, such as outposts, etc. This is a very simple way of abusing the democracy mechanic, and will leave you basically in a position where you will have an infinite amount of influence over a very long period of time. Every 10 years, a free 250 influence. It is absolutely great, and is one of the best ways of abusing the government-type system. Especially considering the imperial and dictatorial, they get a bunch of interesting civics, but in all honesty, democracy is where it's at. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this was very useful to you, and that you now have the ability to use more edicts with your game and blasting your planets into the stratosphere in terms of general output, etc. Next time, we're going to be talking about the wonders of the Dyson Sphere and why it is actually not nearly as bad as people think it is. We're going to be abusing the system of the Dyson Sphere in combination with the outpost guys from the Leviathans update, and that is, of course, none other than our good friends, the Trader Enclave. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, take good care of yourselves, and as always, each other.